Imagine surviving the most destructive weapon humanity has ever built. Now, imagine surviving that exact same weapon twice. Tsutomu Yamaguchi was a 29-year-old naval engineer. He had just finished a 3-month business trip and was preparing to return home to his wife and child. His survival defies all mathematical logic. Today, he is the only person in history officially recognized by the Japanese government as a survivor of both atomic bombs. On August 6, 1945, Yamaguchi was walking toward the Mitsubishi shipyards in Hiroshima to wrap up his final day of work. At exactly 8:15 a.m., the little boy bomb was released over the city. Yamaguchi was standing just 3 kilometers from ground zero. He witnessed a flash of light brighter than 1,000 suns, followed by a shockwave that tore through the air. The pressure was so intense it burst his eardrums and threw him into the air. He suffered severe burns across his face and his arms, which were exposed to the heat of the flash. He managed to crawl into a drainage ditch to escape the falling debris. He spent that night huddled in a dark air raid shelter, surrounded by other survivors. The very next morning, he stepped out into a completely flattened city. Despite his injuries, he dragged himself to the train station, determined to reach his family in Nagasaki. Yamaguchi moved through the ruins with skin hanging from his arms and his hearing nearly gone. He was forcing his body to function in a state of extreme medical shock. He eventually boarded a train filled with the wounded and the dying, enduring a slow journey back to his hometown. He arrived in Nagasaki on August 8th. He believed he had found safety, unaware that a second weapon was already being prepared for his destination. On the morning of August 9th, Yamaguchi reported to his office at the Mitsubishi shipyard, bandaged and barely able to stand. He sat in his boss's office, trying to describe the weapon that had destroyed Hiroshima. His supervisor called the story impossible. He didn't believe a single bomb could vaporize a city, no matter how many eyewitnesses claimed it. At exactly 11:02 a.m., as he was still trying to explain the horror, the second flash filled the room. The Fat Man bomb detonated over Nagasaki. By a staggering coincidence, Yamaguchi was once again exactly 3 kilometers from the explosion. This was the second time in 3 days he had been standing at the edge of total annihilation. As the blast wave shattered the windows of his office, Yamaguchi was forced to watch a second mushroom cloud rise over his own home. Over the following weeks, his hair fell out and his wounds reopened as radiation sickness took hold. He suffered from high fevers that left him bedridden for a month, but his body held on. His fever eventually broke, and his burns began the long process of scarring over. Yamaguchi lived for another 65 years. For much of that time, he remained private, writing poetry to process the memories of the flashes that haunted him. In his final decades, he realized his status as the only official survivor of both bombs carried a weight he could no longer ignore. He began traveling the world, meeting with global leaders to provide living testimony of what these weapons do to a human body. He turned his survival into a mission, campaigning for total nuclear disarmament until his death at the age of 93. Tsutomu Yamaguchi's life suggests that a person's will to live and forgive can be more enduring than the technology designed to erase them. If a man who survived the worst of humanity twice could spend his final years fighting for peace, then the rest of the world has a responsibility to ensure these weapons are never used again.